What are the latency contributors in a typical video transmission system? Before I go into the nitty-gritties of the various elements and explain the details of each, let's take one step back and answer the bigger question. So which approach should we take? We can either look at this through various parameters that contribute to the latency, such as compression, the network jitter, the traffic, the travel time, or we can take it more of a hardware approach, such as looking at the camera, the encoder, the network, the decoder, the monitor. Well, I'm kind of a physical guy, so let's take it from the mechanical perspective. It would also require less a priori knowledge of the various technical parameters to grasp the concept. Okay, the way we look at things here at Carnation Communications, we see 5 components within the typical system. You have here at the top left corner the camera, which captures the live event, but given that in the raw form, the bandwidth is unacceptably large. The stream is then typically fed through an encoder to reduce the bandwidth to a much more manageable size for transmission. The network, for this case, can be your cell phone mobile network, your Wi-Fi, your internet, or any combination of these. It serves to deliver the content for this day and age to any part of the world. And at the receiving end, we have the player, which I have shown here as a set-top box, but it can be in many forms. It could be your cell phone, it could be your laptop, it could be your desktop computer. The player serves to not only decode the bit stream to its raw original form, but it also renders the video into the last component of the chain, which is the display. Do not trivialize the display. It will have to gather all the pixel information serially and present it instantaneously onto the screen. That can take up quite some time. Now, each one of these components contributes independently to the end-to-end delay. With this framework, we'll work through some of the most common latency claims in vendors and try to put some understanding over their specification. Okay, glass latency is commonly referred to the latency between the glass of the camera and then the glass of the display. Say you're at a live event. This would literally be from what you are seeing at the event and then looking down at the cell phone player that is streaming it. Same case as you look at the 2 walking girls sequences in the presentation. The left video would be the live event and the right video will be the streamed version. Spigot to spigot latency. Given that the camera and the display are application specific, a more appropriate way to define the latency would be to measure from just after the camera to just before the display. The approach now taken to be the delay of the data when it is handed off into the encoder to the output of the decoder, thus the term spigot to spigot. End-to-end delay latency. Well, this has been an abused phrase since the end can be ambiguous. Is it the beginning of the encoder or the beginning of the camera? And is it the end of the decoder or end of the display? In general, though, I would take this as the same as spigot to spigot definition. On the subject of ambiguity, there are many configuration settings that can directly affect the readings, including the video frame rate, the compression bit rate, the network distance. This is outside the scope of this discussion, but do take a look at the parametric approach presentation to gain more insight to the configuration dependencies. Okay, one of the most misleading specification methods would be to claim the latency of just the encoder. It follows the theoretical logic where the maximum delay of any raw pixel information provided in the input is reconstructible from the delivered output by no later than the claimed delay. It makes no consideration of the fact that the instantaneous output data rate could be infinite or that the decoding time must be 0. Furthermore, there is no easy way to independently validate the claim, and in practice it is never achievable. But from an advertising promotion perspective, it sounds very impressive. Okay, measurement methods. There exist many manual methods to measure latency by working into the various tap points within the data delivery pipe. We see manual methods using cell phones and fast action cameras, custom designed LEDs and software to capture the delay. On the other end of the spectrum, we see high-end systems that automate this measurement along with a whole slew of other parameters. What I would like to do is to generalize the methods into two types, which uses the CC3020 to serve as a reference tester. Now, in order to accurately align the two video streams between the input spigot and the output spigot, the tester will insert a unique watermark on each of the frame input, effectively inserting a timestamp directly onto the video pixels. The watermark is then read back at the output spigot to identify the matching frames. In order to achieve pixel accurate latency, the tester will monitor the raw video at the physical layer as opposed to the data link or the protocol layer. This will give the highest level of accuracy. Note, this method only is good from the spigot to spigot level. Now, in order to measure the latency introduced by the camera and the display, one must introduce trackable markers directly in the event. The tester CC3020 will introduce a watermark pattern to be captured by the camera. On the other end, CC3020 will work to detect this watermark pattern using a Carnation calibrated capture camera. Again, working at the physical layer, it will be able to detect the latency down to the milliseconds. Lots of hardware. Well, for a minimum setup, all you need is a moving test pattern generator with a watermark and a watermark detector, which are all built in within the CC tester. Note though that the test pattern will define the setting for the test. The CC220 will support all formats from SD, HD, 3G, and 4K. This concludes our presentation. Low latency is an issue that has gained minimum technical progress due to the lack of objective testing. Please do visit some of our other educational videos. The media following on session, latency contributors from a parametric perspective, is very informative and does give a very different angle. Please do catch up with us from time to time as we introduce new educational sessions to this series. Thanks.